Right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rechak Kodesh. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. This is just going to be a continuation, all right, of Daniel, the 11th chapter, all right, and we're on verse 3, okay, as we left off on the last time I did the video. Just give me 1 second. So make sure it's live. All right. And, we're on verse 3, dealing with Alexander. Okay, Alexander the Great or Alexander the Greek. All right. Now, just a quick recap, and we did, verse 1, Daniel 11 and 1. And the reason I'm doing this in verse parts or verse segments is because I'm going a little bit more, giving you a little bit more context and information as to who these people are and what's going on at this time and how they relate to Israel. Okay, if I was to do that for 5 verses at once, I mean, we'd be here for, an unreasonable amount of time. But it says, Daniel 11 and 1, also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. All right, and we know these 3 kings that are going to stand up were Cambyses II, Bardia, all right, who was next. Cambyses II was the first, all right. Bardia, otherwise known as Smerdis, was the next. And Darius, okay, Darius the Persian, or the Great as they called him, was after him. Okay, and it says, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all, which that 4th was Xerxes the First, or as we know him in the scriptures as Ahasuerus, the husband of Esther. Okay, and he's the one you basically see in the movie 300, and you have that whole battle, the battle of Thermopylae, and so on and so forth. It says, and by his strength through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Now we went into how him stirring up all against the realm of Grecia was going into that second Persian invasion of Greece. All right, which the first Persian invasion of Greece started by Darius, the father of Xerxes, but Darius had planned a second invasion. However, he died before he was able to accomplish it. Hence, his son had to carry it on. So we've already covered that part. If you want to know about who these people are, you can go on my channel. All right, and I did videos on it, so you can see who they are. Now, in verse 3, okay, it says, and a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. Now, this mighty king, all right, that shall stand up is talking about Alexander the Greek. Okay, people call him Alexander the Great. But real quick, we're just gonna pull up. All right, we're gonna pull up the Grecian Empire. All right, we're gonna pull up the Grecian Empire. Okay, and okay, so let's pull up this whole joint over here. All right, we'll go with this. All right, and you can see how huge, all right, this empire is. All right, this is vast. All right, they have parts of Cyrene, okay, Egypt, the Levant, Asia Minor, Greece, Macedon, Thrace, all the way Mesopotamia, all the way on to India. Okay, so it was a very, very vast empire. That's why it says in Daniel 11 that in 11 and 3 that a mighty king shall stand up and he shall rule with a great dominion. Okay, and that was Alexander. Now, dealing with Alexander the Greek, or just Alexander, when we read in Daniel the 7th chapter, okay, he's likened onto the leopard, and in Daniel the 8th chapter, he's likened onto the horn. Okay, that was in between the eyes of the eagle. Okay, so let's read about Alexander. All right, because we know the name. Okay, we know the name, but who is he? All right, well, what do we actually know about him? Okay, he conquered, this area. He did it quickly. He died, and his four generals took over. All right, but I'm gonna read just a little bit here about him and how he affected us. Okay, what impact did he have on us? Because what happened during the time of Alexander's time, all right, eventually led to certain things that you see happening in the time of the New Testament. Okay, and they can clear up some understanding. All right, dealing with the Grecians. Okay, that you hear about in the New Testament. Okay, showing you that they weren't, especially the ones who were believing, they weren't heathens, they were Israelites. Okay. So this says here, Alexander the Third the Great, Alexander the Third of Macedon, um, commonly known as Alexander the Great, or Magus, which is, I guess, that's Greek for great. It says was a king, Basilius. That's the word for it, of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. All right, so he became the king of Greece, but originally he started as the king of Macedon, which is over here. All right, which he got, or he basically inherited from his father, Philip II of Macedon. All right, so it says, and a member of the Argead dynasty. All right, he was born in Pella in 356 BC and succeeded his father, Philip II, to the throne at the age of 20. All right, now let's see where this is at. Okay, it says here, Pella is an ancient city located in central Macedonia, Greece, best known as the historical capital of the ancient kingdom of Macedon and birthplace of Alexander the Great. However, the scriptures say that he was born in was it Cyprus or Kittim? Let's pull it up. Um, okay, I believe it's First Maccabees. Should be the first chapter. There it is. All right. It says First Maccabees Chapter One, and it happened after that Alexander the son of Philip, the Macedonian. So it says who came out of the land of Kittim had smitten Darius, king of the Medes, Persians, and the Medes. So here they say in Pella, but here the scriptures tell us it's Kittim. All right, and we're gonna go with what the scriptures say. All right, now notice how he's written of in here. This is history. Okay, but you turn around and say the Bible is fake and it's made up. This is a historical account of what he did and what his generals did. Okay, and it's giving you names. It's telling you who he was. He was a Macedonian. He was king of Macedon, as we just read, son of Philip. All right, and he defeated Darius III, king of the Persians and the Medes, and reigned in his stead, first over Greece. Okay, first over Greece as a whole, because the Greeks were divided. All right, they used to be, they weren't together, unified, and that was a lot of that was really a lot of these um empires before they became empires. They were divided. Okay, they were like just groups, doing their own thing until the and really that's pretty much how everything started. Because when you go to the time of the book of Judges, right? Before, we had a king over us, all right, in terms of Saul and David and so on and so forth. When we during the time of Judges, we had judges, but Jake was really living in like communities doing as the scriptures say. It said every man did as according as what was right in their mind, basically. So it really wasn't until the time of David, okay, that we were fully, like unified, okay, northern and southern kingdom completely, okay. And that was the case for a lot of these different empires before they became those empires. They got unified under a king. Same thing with the Medes, all right, and same thing with the Persians, all right, and then same thing as we're seeing here with the Greeks. They used to be city states, okay, and then through a common cause, all right, they became that unified Greece. Okay, so it says he was king of Macedon or Macedonia, right? And it says here he spent most of his ruling years on an unprecedented military campaign through Western Asia and Northeast Africa, all right, or Northeastern Africa. It says, and by the age of 30, he had created one of the largest empires of the ancient world, stretching from Greece to northwestern India. All right, and that's why I pulled this up here, so you get a visual of what you're reading of. Greece, India. Oh, okay, but you gotta know what you're looking at. Okay, so this is the whole land right here. Now it says, um, he was undefeated in battle and is widely considered one of history's most successful military commanders. But why is that? That was because the Most High had put the spirit upon him because he had a job to do. All right, the scriptures talk about the Most High setteth up kings. All right, and takes them down. So he set up Alexander to get these prophecies rolling. Okay, Shalom. So it says, during his youth, Alexander was tutored by Aristotle until age 16. All right. Which, as Apostle Tahar went into it, all right, he went into the video of it, okay, basically breaking down how Alexander knew Hebrew. He was taught Hebrew. Okay, so when he came, as we're gonna get into, when he came over to Israel, all right, he came to Jerusalem, and Jake showed him, in the scrolls, all right, where it talks about him, he was able to read it. Okay, and we're gonna read how he treated the Israelites that were in those respective areas. So it says, during his youth, Alexander was tutored by Aristotle until age 16. After Philip's assassination in 336 BC, he succeeded his father to the throne and inherited a strong kingdom and an experienced army. It says Alexander was awarded the generalship of Greece and used his this authority to launch his father's pan-Hellenic program or project to lead the Greeks in the conquest of Persia. Okay, so you have what? Pan-Hellenic, all Greece, all right, or all Greek. And as we're going to read, this pan-Hellenic project leads to it has a greater impact, all right, even upon us. All right, so it says, in 334, he invaded the Achaemenid Empire, or the Persian Empire, and began a series of campaigns that lasted 10 years. Following the conquest of Anatolia, all right, which is over here, all right, this area right here, okay, that's what it was known as in the past. It says, Alexander broke the power of Persia in a series of decisive battles, including those of Issus and Gaugamela. He subsequently overthrew Persian King Darius III and conquered the Achaemenid Empire in its entirety. All right, so understand when these kingdoms go down, it's not overnight. All right, but it's through a series of of conflicts. Sometimes it's multiple battles. All right, that weaken whatever the empire is. They go to war, and then one side loses and the other side takes over. Okay, and the reason the Lord allowed Alexander to do all this so quickly was because, once again, he had to fulfill prophecy. All right, because had Alexander not conquered this area, we would have never led up to the Syrian wars. All right, with Antiochus, all right, and the Ptolemies going back and forth, which eventually the Hasmonean dynasty coming about, and then the Greeks, the Romans coming up in there. So for all these things to carry on as they should, okay, guess what? Alexander had to be set up. That's why the Lord allowed him to conquer such a vast land so quickly. All right, in 12 years, he took over this whole joint. Okay. So let's keep reading. It says he subsequently overthrew Persian King Darius III and conquered the Achaemenid Empire in its entirety. At that point, his empire stretched from the Adriatic Sea to the Bias River. Alexander endeavored, and it's good to notice because when you read the scriptures, all right, okay, around what time is this taking place? You gotta. That's why in Daniel the second chapter, the statue in the Book of Nez's dream is so important because it's not just a statue, but it's literally like a time record of the different empires. Okay, So knowing about them, you know, okay, which prophet was during what time period. So when I'm reading the book of Jeremiah, or I'm reading in the book of Esther, or this, that, and the third, I have some context as to what's going on. It's not just random names in a random abyss. These people actually lived. That's like if somebody's reading about us, but they don't know what time period we're in. They just, you know, they all right. So you had the apostles, you had, you know, brothers, but then they'll refer back to Esther, then they'll refer back to Jeremiah as if we all lived in the same time period. Okay. So in the future, just hypothetically speaking, in the future, they would have to learn, all right, which we know how it's going to be, all right, because the kingdom is going to be here. But just speaking hypothetically, if all things continued as they are now, in the future, they would have to learn. I mean, thousands of years, they would have to learn about America. They would have to learn about this beast system. They would have to learn about NATO and the EU and the United Nations, and then learn how society was. They would have to learn about Trump, Biden, and all these different presidents, you know, and then, you know, about us, so they would know what time period we were in. You know, if in the, and you know, brothers do videos. We talk about the trains, the snow. You know, this policy, that policy. So picture them in the future. They'd have to read and study about our time period to know when we're in. So they're not gonna think of, you know, there's a brother in New York City, and then they're thinking of Jeremiah in the time of the Babylonians, and they got the two mixed up because they don't know what time period, they don't know the context. All right, so that's how it is for us reading about the past. What it says in Romans 15:4 is that what was written aforetime, meaning in the past, was written for our learning. All right. So you got to know it. The Lord didn't just write it, just do it there. Yeah, I'm going to slap it on here, just whatever the case may be. All right. Study in detail. So it says, Alexander endeavored to reach the ends of the world and the great outer sea and invaded India in 326 BC, winning an important victory over the Pauravas at the Battle of Hydaspes. He eventually turned back at the demand of his homesick troops, dying in Babylon in 323 BC. So he went all the way from here, took over all this area, came all the way, boom, all right, all the way here, and then eventually went back and died in Babylon. Okay. Um, which what happens after he dies? You can read about that. You had certain regions. I believe it was Perdiccas, all right, became the regent king, and then this, and so there was some things going back and forth for a while before the eventually those generals, all right, that we're gonna go into, all right, later on, those generals, which now we know them as, the notable 4 or 5 generals, all right. Prior to that, it was more than that, all right, but before, it wasn't like the second Alexander died, the generals just got up, boom, split the land, boom, boom, we got everything. No, all right. It says the city that he planned to establish as his capital. So he wanted to set up Babylon as his capital. All right, without executing a series of planned campaigns that would have begun with an invasion of Arabia. In the years following his death, a series of civil wars tore his empire apart, resulting in the establishment of several states ruled by the Diadici or the Diadachi, all right, which is his generals. It says the Diadachi were the rival general families and friends of Alexander the Great who fought for control over his empire after his death in 323 BC. The wars of the Diadici or the Diadachi marked the beginning of the Hellenistic period from the Mediterranean Sea to the Indus River. And it's through these wars that the different lands are going to be set up. All right. And then it's going to lead into the Syrian wars, which is focused on in Daniel 11, as you read on down, dealing with the king of the north and the king of the south. All right. It's not talking about now. This is something that has already taken place. It says Alexander's surviving generals and heirs. Um, okay, let's see. So now we're going to go down. All right, we're going to go down a bit to education. All right. So it says here, education. When Alexander was 13, Philip being his father, began to search for a tutor and considered such academics as Socrates and Speusippus, the latter offering to resign from his stewardship of the academy to take up the post. In the end, Philip chose Aristotle and provided the temple of the nymphs at Mieza as a classroom. In return for teaching Alexander, Philip agreed to rebuild Aristotle's hometown in Stagira, which Philip had raised, all right, meaning to, basically destroy, and to repopulate it by buying and freeing the ex-citizens who were slaves, or pardoning those who were in exile. Now, it's going to tell you, it's going to list a couple of names. It says Mieza was like a boarding school for Alexander and the children of Macedonian nobles, such as Ptolemy. All right, I believe this is Soter. Yep, Ptolemy the first Soter. Now, he is one of those generals that are listed. He had, basically jurisdiction over Egypt. Okay, he actually grew up with Alexander. All right, it says Hephaestion and Cassander. Once again, Cassander was also one of those names. You had Ptolemy, Cassander, Lysimachus, and Seleucus. All right. So at least we know that Ptolemy and Cassander were basically companions or childhood friends with Alexander, hence his generals. Okay. It says many of these students would become his friends and future generals and are often known as the companions. Aristotle taught Alexander and his companions about medicine, philosophy, morals, religion, logic, and art. Okay. Now, people knew, okay, about us. People knew about us because we were different. As the Lord said, we are Deuteronomy 7 and 6. All right. We are above all people, but we are a holy people. So we and our manners and customs were very, very separate from everybody else. So even, empires that were ruling above us knew that there was a difference. All right. They knew that we were different. So word had already gotten out. So when teaching about different religions and, or so on and so forth, of course they had us in there. All right. Under Aristotle's tutelage, Alexander developed a passion for the works of Homer, and in particular the Iliad. Aristotle gave him an annotated copy, which Alexander later carried on his campaigns. All right. Then it goes on, so on and so forth. Now we're just going to deal with. We're going to jump down and go to the Hellenization, because this is the part that, like I said, later on starts to affect Jake. Because what did Alexander do? Remember, he continued that agenda or that project by his father Philip, which was a pan-Hellenic project. So they wanted to spread the Greek culture, all right, the Greek language, the Greek culture, and all these things to everybody. Notice how in the New Testament, majority of these people are called Greeks, right? It's always Greeks. Paul said, what? There's no difference between the Jew or the Greek. What about the Persian? What about the Moabite? What about the Elamite? What about the Arabian? Why does it say the Greek? Because we're about to read here because of Hellenization. So it says Hellenization was coined by the German historian Johann Gustav Droysen to denote the spread of Greek language, culture, and population into the former Persian Empire after Alexander's conquest. So the former Persian Empire, all right, basically ended, let me actually pull it up. Okay, nice. So this was the Persian Empire, all right. It was basically everything you see here, with the exception of what Macedon and Athens and so on and so forth. All right. So what happened with Alexander, all right, was he had authority over these areas, and so he just assimilated the Persian Empire. So this whole land here that you're seeing, all right, basically through that pan-Hellenism or that Hellenization, they started to what? Speak Greek, okay? And they started to practice those Greek cultures and customs, as we're reading about here through Hellenization, okay? It said that they spread the Greek language and culture and population into the former empire, so that whole land. All right. It says, and you know what? That's what these empires do. Okay, the Romans did it, America did it. All right. Now, when we get into power, we gonna do it. We gonna spread the scriptures say that all shall know, all right, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. We gonna spread the laws, we're gonna spread the customs, we're gonna spread everything. What you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. So it's literally whenever an empire came in and they had control, their way was the way, right? So when we come into power, guess what? Our way is gonna be the way. All right. And we're gonna have total. See, you had dominions, and they grew. All right, starting from you had Egypt, the Assyrians, the Babylonians. Their dominions kept growing to where Rome had that basically the portion of the whole known world at the time. And in this time, Esau's trying to really get the whole planet. But we gonna get the planet and the whole universe. All right. So our dominion is going to be the biggest dominion. That's why it tells you, I believe in Isaiah the second chapter. All right, let's pull it up. Actually, we're here, so let's type that in. Isaiah 2. It says here, Isaiah 2:1, and it shall come to pass. Oh, Isaiah 2:2, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house, the government, shall be established on the top of the mountains. So it says, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. So we're going to have our establishment, our kingdom is going to be the greatest and largest dominion, all right, above all these different kingdoms that have been, all right. Because since the world, things got really established, there's only been really a handful of different empires, all right. It's just they ruled for, hundreds of years at a time. So let's go back. Let's read a little bit more about the Hellenization. It says that this export took place is undoubted and can be seen in the Greek Hellenistic cities. For instance, Alexandria, okay, which is in Egypt, okay, Antioch, all right, which we know where that's at. The disciples were first called Christians where? In Antioch. So what was going on in Alexandria? What was going on in Antioch? They had and not only those places, but they were speaking. You had people in there who had been influenced by the spread of the Greek language, culture. All right. It says Seleucia, south of modern Baghdad. Alexander sought to insert Greek elements into Persian culture and attempted to hybridize Greek and Persian culture. This culminated in his aspiration to homogenize the population of Asia and Europe. Okay, now let's look that word up. I guess maybe try to make it one. It says subject, okay, make uniform or similar, unite. Yeah, to make it one. Okay, because you got that homo going into same. All right. So it says the populations of Asia and Europe. However, his successors explicitly rejected such policies. So notice how when you go into Daniel, let me see. When you go into Daniel 11:4, I'm just going to touch on this slightly. All right, next time I actually go into it, notice it says in verse 3, we're dealing with Alexander, right? Now in verse 4 it says, and when he shall stand up, so when he was at the height of the kingdom, his kingdom shall be broken. All right, because Alexander died, and then his kingdom, there was the civil wars, right? So that unification got broken up, and shall be divided towards the four winds of heaven, all right, which were, the north, the south, the southwest, northwest, going into the different areas that his generals had to rule. Now notice it says, and not to his posterity, meaning his descendants, because those that got dominion of his kingdom were not his children. All right, they were his generals. It says, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. Okay, so they didn't rule according to how Alexander ruled or how he wanted to rule. And that's key because we just read it here. It says this culminated in his aspiration to homogenize the populations of Asia and Europe. He wanted to unite and make it one. And that was the kind of dominion in which he ruled. However, his successors explicitly rejected such policies. And that's what we just read, that what they were going to rule, but not according to his dominion. They wanted to rule how they wanted to rule. It says, nevertheless, Hellenization occurred and throughout the region, accompanied by a distinct and opposite orientalization of the successor states. The core of the Hellenistic culture promulgated by the conquest was essentially Athenian. The close association of men from across Greece in Alexander's army directly led to the emergence of the largely Attic-based coin. All right. It says Koine Greek, also known as Alexandrian dialect, Common Attic, Hellenistic, or Biblical Greek. All right. It says, or Common Greek dialect. Koine spread throughout the Hellenistic world, becoming what? The lingua franca, the common language. So Greek became the common language of what? Of the Hellenistic world. So the whole area that we're looking on here, Greek became the common language. That's why Paul spoke what? Greek. That's why the Romans also, though they spoke Latin, they also spoke what? Greek. Remember, it was the Greco-Roman Empire. So the different individuals that were living in these different lands, because you had Israelites living in these different lands, what did you think they did? There were some that maintained and remained and maintained the customs of being an Israelite, namely those that were in Judea. But you had some that were in different lands who were influenced by the Greek influence, that Alexander has spread through that Pan-Hellenism. All right, Shalom Zaquan. That's right. Stay in the spirit. 144. Second Maccabees 6:6. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fasts or to profess himself to be a Jew. Okay, and all this is what is going to lead into the New Testament, where you have Grecians. Okay, because had Alexander not conquered this whole land and spread that Hellenization, you wouldn't have the Grecian term. Grecian does not mean, all right, necessarily that you are a specific Greek born, all right, here in Europe or in Greece and so on and so forth. Okay, because when you go into it, there's a definition that mentions a Greek speaking Jew. You know, so going on, it says the lingua franca. So Greek became the common language, all right, of the Hellenistic lands, and eventually the ancestor of modern Greek. It says, furthermore, town planning, education, local government, and art current in the Hellenistic period were all based on classic Greek ideals, okay, evolving into distinct new forms commonly grouped as Hellenistic. So then you read certain portions in the scriptures, you read it'll mention what? The Hellenistas, all right, or the Hellenists or Hellene. It says aspects of Hellenistic culture were still evident in the traditions of the Byzantine Empire in the mid 15th century. All right. So through this Hellenization, which started with Alexander, but was further pushed, as the elder put the scripture here, from Maccabees during his generals' times. All right. It's namely during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay. This eventually led, all right, to a lot of Israelites. You had a lot of them that actually just completely left, their heritage of being Israelites and started to live like the Greeks, had children, started to really get into that culture. But you had certain Israelites that knew they were Israelites, but what did they do? They started to adopt Greek names. All right, John Hyrcanus, right? Simon, all these different, even from the Maccabean family line, Alexander, I forget the other dudes, Aristobulus. These are Greek names. All right. When you look into the Hasmonean dynasty, all right, let's bring that up. The Hasmonean dynasty family tree. All right, look at these. Even Jason, for example. All right, these are not Hebrew names. Now you can have the Hebrew equivalent. Okay, so you have John, Simon, Judas. Notice how in the Old Testament you don't see names like this. It's really in the New Testament you see Paul, Peter, John. Where do you think all that goes back to? So what was in between the Hebrew names that we had and now these modern Greek names that you hear in Roman and Greek names that you hear in the New Testament? The difference in between was that Hellenization process. Because one thing about the Romans was they assimilated the Greek Empire into them. So there were things like Greek culture, Greek language, Greek names, Greek art that they took and made a part of their culture as well. So they didn't just completely do away with those things. All right. It's just like today. You got brothers with English names. You look at certain last names, you're like, come on. You know what I'm saying? It's just like today. So you got names like John and Simon in the Old Testament. You'll hear Elijah or Jeremiah. Judah. New Testament you'll hear Judas. Or Jude. Okay. It says in the Old Testament you'll hear like Jacob, and then you hear James. So there's a difference between the formulation of the names. Even the 12 apostles. You know, Luke, Paul. These are not. This is not Hebrew. All right. So it says John, Simon, Judas, Eleazar, Jonathan. All right. But you had Eleazar in the Old Testament. Jonathan. All right. You had John Hyrcanus, Aristobulus, Alexander or Alexandra, Salome, and Antigonus. Antigonus was one of the names of Alexander's generals. Okay, so Alexander, Jannaeus, these are Greek names. Why? Like we just read, because of that Hellenization. Okay, so this had a big impact on us. Now, this doesn't mean that they were Greeks, all right, but you had Israelites and other nations that spoke the Greek tongue. You see it today. You got Jake that speak. I mean, a lot of us speak what? English. What am I speaking right now? English. All right. But you have Jake that you might hear an Israelite on the phone and you might think is a straight up Edomite. All right. And I've seen it before. And then you see them in person. You're like, oh, that's it. Oh, Um. So that's all I wanted to read on this part concerning Alexander. Now I have here. All right. Matter of fact, before I read this, we'll go into a few precepts. Acts 16, Acts the 16th chapter. All right. Now it says here, Acts 16 and 1. Okay. It says, then came he to Derbe and Lystra. I believe this is talking about Paul. All right, Derbe and Lystra. And once again, like I always emphasize, get into the habit of, it may seem tedious, but get into the habit of looking it up, so you know where these are. Okay, so we're gonna look up Derbe. All right. Derbe and Lystra. It's simple. You just type literally just Derbe and Lystra map, and it's gonna pop up. All right. So what we have here, let's see, we could use this. All right, and this goes into the missionaries basically that Paul went on, and it actually shows you the direction and where they went. So as you're reading in the scriptures, okay, you're reading and they'll say they sailed onto Salamis or Paphos and then Perga and then Antioch. It's these are actual places, these are locations. Okay. So it says they left from, now you have an Antioch in Asia Minor, but you also have an Antioch here in Syria. Okay. So once again, it's good to know this location. If you don't know what you're looking at, you hear in Antioch, you hear in another Antioch, you're probably picturing the same place. Right? So they sailed off from here. All right. They got off the coast because remember, just like today, if I want to, get to a certain location, If I jump on the 4 train, there's a specific path the 4 train goes. The 4 train is not going, you know what I'm saying, jump, jump, jump to get me specifically where I want to go. I gotta take the 4 train, maybe transfer to the D train, and then walk to a certain area and then catch another train. So you're going on this transportation and it's going in its direction. You just gotta board it to get you closer to where you can transfer or whatever the case may be. So if you want to get to somewhere like Asia Minor, instead of having to do all that walking and so on and so forth, because it was dangerous. All right, walking. Hey, Paul tells you that. You had a lot of robbers, okay, people who will be hiding, bandits, and they will rob your ass. So it was very dangerous to travel by land, okay. So you catch a ship or a boat, all right, that's going to Cyprus. Okay, I'm gonna catch that, get here, and then I'll transfer to one, and they will dock. The boats will dock, people will get off. Maybe certain imports, whatever it is. Then it goes again to Perga. Okay, that's where I'm gonna get off. Some of them went in different locations. Anyway, so we have Derbe over here, and you have Lystra over here. All right, in Galatia, okay, or Asia Minor. Okay, so Acts 16 says, "Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman who was a Jewess and believed, but his father was a Greek." Okay, now does that mean that Timothy was an Edomite? No. Let's look up the word Greek. It says Helen, okay, or Helene. It says a Greek either by nationality, whether a native of the mainland or the Greek islands or colonies. In a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, that made the language, customs, and learning of the Greeks their own. The primary reference is to a difference of religion and worship. Okay, so now why would these people make their language, customs, and learning Greek their own? Because when we went back and we read about the Hellenization, what did it say? It said town planning, education, local governments. Okay, it also mentioned how Greek was made a common language. The customs and all these things, they were pushed during that Hellenistic period. Okay, so when you come across a situation like this, Timothy's father was an Israelite, but he was one of those Israelite that embraced. Okay, now it says in a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, that made the language, customs, but you had Israelites that actually did this. Now, not Jews, meaning it's excluding those that were specifically in Judea, because they were known like, oh, nah, we're not with this. We do our own thing. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you didn't have Israelites that were part of these people who had taken hold of these different customs and religions and so on and so forth. Okay, so now let's see if we can get a bit more information on this. Another tool you can utilize, other than the concordance or the lexicon, is the dictionary section. All right, here we're in the interlinear, but if you go to the dictionary section, you have, the Eastern Bible Dictionary, for example, and you can look up the different words that are in this verse and get some background information on them. So we're going to go down and let's click on Greek. All right. Let's see if they give us something that we can use. Found only in the New Testament, where a distinction is observed between Greek and Grecian. The former is, one, a Greek by race, or two, a Gentile as opposed to a Jew. The latter meaning properly, one who speaks Greek is a foreign Jew opposed to a home Jew who dwelt in Palestine. Okay, a foreign Jew. All right, one who speaks Greek is a foreign Jew opposed to a home Jew who dwelt in Palestine. So where was Timothy's father? He wasn't in Palestine. He was here. in Galatia, right? And then you had those Jews in Judea. So he would be considered a foreign Jew. His father would be considered a foreign Jew who spoke Greek. Does not mean that he's not an Israelite. Okay, but this is the effects of that Hellenization. Okay. Um, Now it says here the former, or it says here one a Greek by race, and then it puts Acts 16:1, but this is incorrect because Timothy's father was not a Greek by race. All right, his nationality, well, he wasn't an Edomite. Okay, um, so it seems that that's all that they're gonna give us here that we can actually use. Let's see. Do we have anything here? All right, Grecians and Greeks. There we go. That this seems like, so you see how just clicking on this, it gives you so much more context. It gives you a lot more information on here. All right, quite a lot of information. Um, Let me see. It says here in the New Testament, English versions of the Bible attempts to distinguish between Hellenists, which is rendered Greeks, and Hellenistai, which is rendered Grecians or Grecian Jews. All right. Now, give me 1 second. Let me charge up this laptop real quick. All right. Right. So it says, so there's a difference between an actual Greek, okay, and an Israelite. All right. So like we started off in Acts 16, I just wanted to bring that out to show you that Timothy's father would be an example of one who was like an effect of this whole thing, this Hellenistic push started by Alexander, okay, and then continued by his generals and basically those Greek rulers. All right. Now moving on, you have Acts chapter 6:1, and it says, and in those days when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. Now let's look up the word Grecians. All right. It says here, Hellenistas, one who imitates the manners and customs or the worship of the Greeks and uses the Greek tongue, meaning the Greek language, used in the New Testament of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. But the question is, why were they speaking Greek? Because, like we went over, Alexander, him conquering the no. So you see how the Lord had to have Alexander set up to do what he did, which would in turn lead to Yahushua coming and then setting up the disciples and then having Paul go out to these different areas and let these Israelites know, hey, look, you speak in Greek, you practicing their customs, so on and so forth, but you're an Israelite. All right, you're an Israelite. Okay, so that right there is just showing you that. Now, before we close it out, I just wanted to deal with this part right here in the book of Josephus, all right, which is an account of what happened when Alexander, see, let's pull up this map again. And you'll notice that within this Greek empire, you have what? You have, oh, this is the Persian. Okay, let me pull up the Greek. All right, in the Grecian Empire, boom, this area is where we were at, the Levant, all right, where Israel was at. So if this was taken over by the Greeks, that means that we had some encounter with Alexander. Now let's read, all right, what happened when Alexander came over there. It was much different than what happened when Antiochus Epiphanes came over there. So this is from the book of Josephus. Um, Let me see if it gives us the exact. All right, it doesn't. I don't remember the exact page, but here it says 11.326. So we're gonna start from there. It says, now Alexander, when he had taken Gaza, made haste to go up to Jerusalem. All right. Now take a look at this. Gaza Uh, ancient map. All right. Boom. I will keep losing the Greek thing. All right. So this is how he was able. So he takes over all these different lands. He takes over all these different areas. All right. But we are also a part of those areas that he takes over. All right. So he's taken over Gaza. And he comes to Jerusalem. It says, and Jadis, all right, the high priest, when he heard that, was in agony and under terror, and as not knowing how he should meet the Macedonians, since the king was displeased at his foregoing disobedience. All right. Now, when Alexander first came, he basically was telling them, look, you deal with me now, because I'm going to be the next king. I'm going to be the one. And they were like, we had already pledged our allegiance or our obedience to the Persians, so we can't just, flip on them like that. So now Alexander goes and he starts conquering stuff, and he comes back and we on some, oh shit, well, you know what I'm saying? Like, you came, and usually that's the reaction. I ask you to join me, or I ask you to, be on my side. You say no, I go and win. Now, what you think I'm gonna do to you when I come back? Um, so it says, he therefore ordained that the people should make supplication and should join with him in offering sacrifice to the Most High, whom he besought to protect that nation and to deliver them from the perils that were coming upon them. Whereupon the Most High warned him in a dream, which came upon him after that he had offered sacrifice, that he should take courage and adorn the city and open the gates, that the rest should appear in white garments, but that he and the priests should meet the king in the habits proper to their order, without the dread of any ill consequences, which the providence of the Most High would prevent. So the priests are stressed that Alexander's coming. They're scared. They're like, damn, he's about to violate. But the Lord comes to him in a dream and says, hey, look, calm down. All right. This is what you do. Have the rest of them dressed in all white, and uh, um, just greet him regularly. Nothing is going to happen. I'm going to make sure of it. It says, upon which, when he rose from his sleep, he greatly rejoiced and declared to all the warning he had received from the Most High, according to which dream he acted entirely, and so waited for the coming of the king. And when Jadis, all right, we're going to call him Yehoiada, all right, because that should translate to Judah, Jadis, Judas, Jude, all right, understood that Alexander was not far from the city, he went out in procession with the priest and the multitude of the citizens. The procession was venerable, and the manner of it different from that of the other nations. It reached to a place called Sapha, which name translated into Greek signifies a prospect, for you have thence a prospect both of Jerusalem and of the temple. Um, Here we go. And when the Phoenicians and the Samaritans, these damn heathens, all right, that followed him, thought they should have liberty to plunder the city and torment the high priest to death. So they're like, all right, they thinking that Alexander is about to, crush Jerusalem, So they're behind. They're like, yeah, it's lit, because remember, these Samaritans and Phoenicians were heathens, all right, damn dusty ass heathens that were put in that land after the northern kingdom got deported. So, these are the same demons that when we try to rebuild the temple during the time of Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest, they kept causing problems for us. So they come in like, oh yeah, he's about to destroy it, and we're about to help partake in it. It says, which the king's displeasure fairly promised them, and the very reverse of it happened. So because Alexander was pissed, he basically promised them, oh yeah, we're gonna tear this shit down. But the Most High had it to where the reverse happened. It says, for Alexander, when he saw the multitude in a distance in white garments, while the priest stood clothed in fine linen, and the high priest in purple and scarlet clothing, with his mitre on his head, having the golden plate whereon the name of the Most High was engraved, he approached by himself and adored that name, and first saluted the high priest. No, this does not mean Alexander was a Jake. All right, he was still an he was still an Edomite. But don't go thinking just because you have a heathen show reverence. Oh, he might be an Israelite. No. So it says the Jews also did all together with one voice salute Alexander and encompass him about, whereupon the kings of Syria and the rest were surprised at what Alexander had done and supposed him dishonored in his mind. So they're like, hold on, you conquering all these vast lands, are you gonna come and pay homage to these Jews? You know. However, Parmenion alone went up with him and asked him how it came to pass that when all others adored him, he should adore the high priest of the Jews. Everybody's looking at you. You gonna come and you gonna adore these people? What's going on here? To whom he replied, I did not adore him, but that God who has honored him with his high priesthood. So he made reverence, all right, to the Most High Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, all right, and it's going to tell you why. It says, for I saw this very person in a dream, in this very habit, when I was at Dion in Macedonia, who, when I was considering with myself how I might obtain the dominion of Asia, exhorted me to make no delay, but boldly to pass over the sea thither, for that he would conduct my army and would give me the dominion over the Persians. So Alexander had a dream, all right, of the high priest, and in the dream he was told that he was gonna basically be given the power to conquer the Persians. All right, so that's why is the spirit how the Most High came to Alexander in a dream and showed him what he showed him the priest dressed in white and all of that, and then the Most High came to the priest and said, "Yo, dress in white." So that when Alexander comes, this is what he's going to see, and instead of being angry at you, he's going to show favor to you. So see how the Most High works? All right, the Most High is in control of everything, man. All right, he can turn enemy to friend, all right, in the matter of, or friend to foe, just like that. So it says, whence it is that having seen no other in that habit, and now seeing this person in it, he and remembering the vision, or remembering that vision and the exhortation which I had in my dream, I believe that I bring this army under the divine conduct. So he knew. It says, and shall therewith conquer Darius and destroy the power of the Persians, and that all things will succeed according to what is in my own mind. So that was a confirmation for Alexander that, yo, this me seeing these priests dressed in all white validates my dream, all right, that I'm gonna conquer, all right, these Persians, and I'm gonna become king of all Greece. Why? Because it's prophecy. Okay. It says, and when he had said this to Parmenion and had given the high priest his right hand, the priest ran along with him, and he came into the city. And when he went up into the temple, he offered sacrifice to the Most High according to the high priest's direction, and magnificently treated both the high priests and the priests. And when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was that person intended. And as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present. So how did he read that? All right, of course he had to have known Hebrew. Okay, now let's see, because when you go to Daniel 8, all right, it says it clearly in here. Daniel chapter 8, verse, and this is a vision that Daniel said came to him in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar. Okay, so that should be about just a few before the kingdom, all right, of the Babylonians fell. So this was hundreds of years before Alexander, because this is during the time of Belshazzar. The Babylonians fall around 539 BC. And you come all the way from 539, 538, 537, all the way on down to let's say around 330 something. All right, or 320 something. That's a good couple hundred years, all right, or 100 years. all right, or somewhere around that span. Okay, so that's when Daniel has this vision, all right, and it says here, and I saw in a vision, Daniel 8 and 2, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had two horns, and this ram represented the Medes and the Persians, all right, the Medo-Persian Empire. And the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last, of course, the higher being the Persians. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth. All right, boom. This was the west, because Daniel is around Persia, so this is the west, right? It says and the he goat represented the Grecian Empire. All right, it says or the Greek Empire. So it says, and touch not the ground. Okay, meaning that was going into how swift and how quick Alexander or the Greeks conquered these different lands. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, and that horn was who? Alexander. Okay, and he came to the ram, came to the Medo-Persian Empire that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran onto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against the ram, and smote the ram and break his two horns. So the Greeks were going to succeed over the Persians. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. All right. So this is the scripture in Daniel that says Alexander was going to basically take over these Persians. So they showed him that. Now, more specifically, the angel breaks it down as to who's who. Okay. Daniel 8 and 16, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So Daniel is writing all this down. It says, I'm gonna jump down, verse 19, and he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed shall it be. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. The rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. So right there, that's all they needed to show him. Okay. Oh shoot. Oh shit. That's me. Oh, okay. All right. You know. So going back to the Josephus, it says here 11.337, and when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was the person intended, because it specifically said is who is the first king, and Alexander was the first king, all right, of the Greek Empire. So it says, and as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present. But the next day he called them to him and bid them what favors they pleased of him. So what do you want? Whereupon the high priest desired that they might enjoy the laws of their forefathers and might pay no tribute on the 7th year. He granted all they desired. And when they asked him that he would permit the Jews in Babylon and Media to enjoy their own laws also, he willingly promised to do hereafter what they desired. Now, why were there Jews in Babylon and Media? Okay, when the Babylonians took over Jerusalem, what did they do? It tells you that in the book of Jeremiah. They took Jake captives to Babylon, and over that long period of time of Jake living there, all right, what did they do? They started. Some came back, all right, but some stayed. So you had Jews in Media, had Jews in Babylon, all right. But being that you were in those lands, there were certain things that we couldn't do freely. Same thing like now, we can't do certain things freely. So they beseech Alexander, saying, well, since you're gonna have control over all this land, it's in your power to allow us, all right, to keep our laws. It says, and when he said to the multitude that if any of them would enlist themselves in his army on this condition, that they should continue under the laws of their forefathers and live according to them, he was willing to take them with him, and many were ready to accompany him in his wars. So you had certain Jakes that were basically in Alexander's army. So when Alexander had thus settled matters in Jerusalem, he led his army into the neighboring cities, and when all the inhabitants to whom he came received him with great kindness, the Samaritans, who had then Shechem for their metropolis, a city situate in Mount Gerizim, the inhabited by the apostates of the Jewish nation, seeing that Alexander had so greatly honored the Jews, determined to profess themselves Jews. And then when you go on down, it tells you that these damn Samaritans, man, is these damn Samaritans. See, I think it's gonna say it if we keep reading. Let's see. Actually, let's just keep reading. All right, it's only just a few more. We can end it off here. It says, accordingly, they made their address to the king with splendor and showed great alacrity in meeting him at, let's look up that word. All right. I'll close out a few of these tabs. All right. It says brisk and cheerful readiness. All right. Eagerness in meeting him at a little distance from Jerusalem. And when Alexander had commended them, the Shechemites approached to him. And if you want to know where that's at, all right, just simply type it in. Shechem map. Okay, and it's going to show you. Let me get a clear one. Okay, boom. All right. So you have Jerusalem down here. You have Shechem up here. All right. So it says the Shechemites approached to him, taking with them the troops that Sanballat had sent him, and they desired that he will come to their city and do honor to their temple also, because they also built the temple. All right, which basically, remember, they were like a counterfeit version of us, because in order to live in the land, they had to be taught how to worship the Lord in the land so that they wouldn't keep getting killed by them lions. And then over time, they now start thinking that, their descendants start thinking that they're entitled, or they worship our power. And that's why Yahushua told the lady at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well, that you don't know who you worship, but we know who we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. All right. It says, to whom he promised, and when he returned, he would come to them. And when they petitioned that he would remit the tribute of the 7th year to them, because they did so thereon, he asked who they were that made such a petition, right? So he's like, because they thinking, well, you just did this for the Jews, so shit, let's come up in there and let's ask you to do things for us too. And he's like, okay, well, who are you? You asking all this, who are you? Because he knew who Jake was. It says, and when they said they were Hebrews, all right, but had the name of Sidonians living at Shechem, he asked them again whether they were Jews. All right. It says, and they said they were not Jews. All right, because to be in Hebrew does not necessarily mean that you're an Israelite. You have Hebrew Israelites, you have Hebrew Edomites, you have Hebrew Elamites. All right. So it says, and when they said they were not Jews, it was to the Jews, said he, that I granted that privilege. Ooh, damn. So they pulled up and said, oh, well, you could do this for us too. He's like, who the hell are you? Oh, we Hebrews. Or are you Jews? He's like, no, we're not. They said, no, we're not Jews. He said, all right, well, then what you asking for? I granted this as a special favor for the Jews. All right. That's why he said it. It was to the Jews, said he, that I granted that privilege. However, when I return and am thoroughly informed by you of this matter, I will do what I think, or what I shall think proper. And in this manner he took leave of the Shechemites, but ordered that the troops of Sanballat should follow him into Egypt, because there he designed to give them lands, which he did a little after in Thesis, where he ordered them to guard that country. And it was the Alexandria, Egypt, was named after Alexander, and he gave us basically leave. Whatever Jews wanted to go there and stay there, we were able to do so. That's why you also had a large community of Jakes, all right, that were living in Alexandria, Egypt. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Going back to Daniel 11:3, it says, "And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will." And that mighty king was Alexander the Greek. All right, which we just went into a bit of information about him, what he did, what impact he had on us. Okay. And so I'm gonna end it off here, Lord willing. Next time we'll go into verse 4, going into the Diadici, the wars, the generals, and so on and so forth. All right. But hey, Lord willing, this is edifying. All right. To those that tuned in. All right. This, there's different parts of the scriptures that we go into. All right. But you got a lot of, oftentimes Jake don't like to, get into the actual information and the learning part of the scriptures. They like the things that are easy on the ears. I just gotta listen, or it's just, drama, or is a rebuke, or is this, but you gotta also have that part of the scriptures where you study. So anyway, with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.